Okay, got the old housing ends cut off, and got the Ford 9-inch end, that's the black part here, roughly set in place here. And of course got a alignment bar going through the rear end so that the housing ends fit real nice. Now one thing, if you notice here, if you look at how the housing end on this side and the new 9-inch Ford end, it's relatively the same. It's got, you can see just a little more offset here than what you do on the top, but when you go look at this side here, it doesn't have much offset on this side and has a fair amount offset on that. That's just how far the axle tubes, can vary in manufacturing, and also just wear and tear over the years. So that's why you want to make sure you use an alignment tube with the proper pucks, so everything comes out nice and square and you get a good finish. Anyways, we got it all jigged up now, so now it's going to be just time to weld it all out. I'll do a little prep work here on the new Ford 9-inch end, and then we'll make sure that the bolt holes for your brakes are parallel with the leaf spring mounts. That's how they were factory, so that's why we'll put them back. I'll update more later. Okay, I thought I'd show you what all actually got done on this thing. All right, like I said, we've welded on the Ford 9-inch axle ends. Now the whole reason for that is on a GM center section, this is a posi GM rear end right here. All right, there's usually a C-clip here, so your axle goes in here and sticks in, and there's a C-clip that's holding your axle in place right here. Right. Well, the problem is, if that's way over here, okay, that's where that C-clip is retaining your axle in. If your axle breaks anywhere along here, well, that C-clip that's way over there, that don't do you no good, and your axle, it's just going to take off and fly off that way. You can wreck your car, tear up your quarter panel, do all kinds of bad things. So by having the Ford 9-inch ends, it's got a bearing retainer on here. The axle retainer is out here on this end. So even if you break an axle anywhere up in here, it doesn't matter because the axle's being retained here on this end. So that was the reason for doing that. Now we also, what happened on my car a while back is this whole center section here is what rotated separately from this tube. So you've got your leaf springs going in here, and this whole tube was stationary because it was bolted to the leaf springs, but this whole center section here ripped loose and rotated because the factory just has these little spot welds here. Well, we went ahead and I welded all the way around on this so that it's attached real good. These tubes are not going to twist separately from the axle. Then what has happened before on some cars is this leaf spring perch here, those have tore off. This is a factory weld here, and those have torn off. It's not real common, but it does happen. So I went ahead and strapped all the way around here, and of course did some welding to further hold it in place. So that leaf spring perch is not going anywhere. So again, got your center section welded to the tubes, got the Ford 9-inch axle ends on this GM 10 bolt, and got straps to support the leaf spring perches so that everything will be good and strong for whatever gets thrown at this thing. Alright, well, I'm off to the next thing.
Okay guys, at the first part of this video, the sound wasn't as loud as what it should have been. The audio just didn't come across as good. So I'll recap what we're doing. Doing a 10 bolt here for a guy, had taken out some 488 gears and putting some 342 gears in, and we're changing from the 10-bolt ends to a Ford 9-inch end. Again, the whole goal is just in case something bad happens where you break an axle, the 9-inch retainer is out on the brake end of the rear axle housing. So if you break an axle anywhere down the length of it, the wheel and tire is still going to stay on the car, and so you'll have control. Whereas on a factory GM 10-bolt, 12-bolt, those type of rear ends, Ford 8.8, all those, they use a C-clip in the center of the rear end. And so if you break the axle anywhere, the axle's coming out of the car and the wheel's coming away, you can lose control. A lot of bad things happen. So again, I apologize for the audio there at the first. It's a little quiet, but I think it's enough where if you listen hard, you can hear it. Okay, so I want to do another quick street race story. This time I'm going to talk about first time I went to Springfield, or I had moved to Springfield, first time I went out in Springfield, and was in my first real street race there. So prior to this car, I had a 78 Trans Am, and it had a 455 in it, typical mild stuff. Had a hydraulic flat tappet cam, aluminum intake, holly carb, headers, converter, 373 gears, had a plate nitrous kit on it, and some 28x9 slicks. And, I felt the car was a fairly quick car. It was running 1180s, if I remember right at that time. This would have been, 87, 88 time frame, somewhere in there. I wasn't cocky about it, but most cars at that time were 12 and 13 second rides, and like I said, this one was dipping into the 11s, and so I felt pretty good about my chances against a lot of street cars. So anyways, I'd moved to Springfield, and it was right before the Street Machine Nationals weekends. Of course, anybody's familiar with 80s, 90s Springfield Street Machine Nationals, that thing was a huge event. And so we're out there on Saturday night, and the main place where people raced was on Highway 13, just at Fantastic Caverns Road. You'd go meet up on Fantastic Caverns Road, and then either pair up or random, or however you were doing that, you'd pull out onto 13, and there'd also be cars just lined up down 13 as well. And then somebody'd flag you. And of course, there's a really long, it's divided highway. You had a couple of miles of straight or more at that point. So, real good place to race. Anyways, so I'm still learning, who's in town, stuff like that. I hadn't been in Springfield but a couple weeks or so, maybe, 3 weeks, something like that. And this is my first time out there, and so I pull out there, and I don't remember who set it up or how that came about, but I'm racing a black 55 Chevrolet, all right? And I didn't know nothing about the car, didn't know the driver, nothing about this at the time, but I'm looking over at it, and he's on some Cooper Cobra tires, just a plain radial tire. I'm on a slick, okay? So right away, I'm thinking, I'm going to stomp this guy, I'm just going to have a big advantage on him. So, again, I didn't know what the power plant of the 55 was. I didn't know nothing about it. I just saw the tires, and I saw he was also on just some generic type slapper bars. And I'm like, again, felt pretty confident I was going to do. Anyway, so we pull up there, do our burnouts, stage. The guy drops his hands, and I'll never forget this. My car leaves pretty decent for, just like always. And I look over, and that black 55 is sitting exactly beside me. And I'm thinking, how in the hell is this guy on a plain tire, and I'm on a slick, and he's just sitting there right beside me? Anyways, so, I grab a gear, and my car's moving on down the road, and this guy starts pulling on me. And I'm like, in my mind, my car's making a good pass. I'm probably, it's on the street, so I'll probably lose a little bit, but I'm running probably 1190, 12.0, something like that out there on the street. and this guy's outrunning me. And he finally beats me by a little bit. And again, I still don't know this guy. All I knew was he was on a plain Cooper Cobra radial tire and had a set of generic traction bars on it, and he had a 4-speed. I found out as he was going down, I could hear him pull gears. And this guy flat out ran me. And as it turned out later, that guy ended up being a very good friend of mine. His name is Gary Pringle. And we ended up racing just a lot over the years. He ended up teaching me a lot about stuff, you know, just especially running smaller nitrous kits. I had a couple of guys that really helped me out over the years, and I'll go into that more later on, but Gary really helped me out learning how to get the most out of smaller nitrous kits, something you can actually use on the street. Anyways, but I'll never forget that. That was my first street race in Springfield, and I was pretty confident going into it that I was probably going to win, and I got my butt handed to me by a car. Like I said, though it turned out to be a very special car. This was not your average 55. That 55 had a very good reputation because it was a mean son of a gun. Anyways, I just thought I'd give you a quick story about some street racing there. I'll probably do more and more of these as I go on. Talk to you later.